My name is Elena Hart, and I am 30-something, old enough to know the difference between a joke and a blade disguised as one. The clock at my parents' backyard read 7:12 p.m. when the string lights finally warmed the air into something that looked like love. It was my dad's 50th, months of planning, a tent that made the grass smell sweeter, a taco truck squeezed into the driveway like a dare, a playlist of Springsteen and Queen that kept catching on the corners of people's conversations. I stood near the fire pit, holding a paper cup I didn't want, pretending the heat on my skin was enough to pass for belonging. I'd driven down from Boston the night before and checked into a hotel, even though there was a guest room at my parents' place with my name on it and a duvet that never quite got warm. 15 years in the city had taught me to carry my own shelter. Finance had taught me to carry everyone else's. Hospital bills, down payments, the unglamorous things that keep a family from falling apart. The unglamorous things that made me invisible. I was there early enough to help set out forks, late enough to avoid being assigned the grill. Mom was fussing over the salsa. Dad was in a good suit, the kind that made him stand straighter. My sister Marlene had Tyler glued to her side, all height and angles and those designer sneakers I knew he didn't pay for. He was 17, which is an age people like to excuse. Old enough, they say, to understand everything but your own weight in a room. The photographer called everyone to gather by the fire pit. Cousins murmured their way into a clump. Uncles pretended to joke about hairlines. Aunts fussed with necklines. And I found a gap near the back, the place you stand when you don't want to be the problem, and you know you are anyway. Tyler turned, looked me up and down, and said, casual as dropping a napkin, "Grandma says you're not really part of the family." There was a laugh. Not the shocked kind. Not the kind that says, "Hey, that crossed a line." The real kind. The one that releases a truth everyone already agreed to in private. I heard my cousin snort. Someone clapped. My mother didn't say a word. My father lifted one eyebrow and smirked, like he'd just seen a headline he agreed with but wouldn't share. Marlene adjusted Tyler's collar and didn't look at me. I smiled. It's what you do when a blade arrives wrapped in ribbon. You smile like your skin is thicker than it is. The photographer snapped a picture. I wondered, stupidly, if I'd be cropped out later. I lasted 17 minutes after that. I hugged Dad and told him the tacos were perfect. I told Mom I'd text the hotel to see if I could get late checkout. I told Marlene her lipstick color was brave. She laughed and asked if I still had that little savings account set up for Tyler's school, the one we never talked about out loud. I said I'd check the balance tomorrow. I left without dessert. It turns out the line between included and exit is as thin as the napkin you take with you to wipe your hands in the dark. At the hotel, the lobby bar was all amber glass and low promises. I ordered something I wouldn't taste and took it upstairs. The room smelled like someone else's soap. I set the drink down beside the laptop and opened the education account. There it was. Enough for another year and a half at that expensive private school that sent newsletters about character while building a donor wall taller than its library shelves. 3 clicks. Freeze. No message. No warning. Just done. It was 8:55 a.m. when my phone lit up with 22 missed calls from Marlene. I let the screen go to sleep and wake itself like it was trying to prove I was still needed. At 10:12, I picked up. "You're heartless," she said. Not hello. Not why. What kind of woman punishes a kid for telling the truth? "I'll pass along my thanks for the heads up," I said, and hung up before she could decide whether to hear me. By noon, Mom texted, "We need to talk. What you did to Tyler was unnecessary." At 1:03, "Dad, call your mother." I didn't. I went home to Boston that evening. The city looked exactly like it always does when you finally admit the story is not about you. I stood at my kitchen window and watched taillights stream into their own answers. The glass was cool under my palm. My phone hummed and hummed and hummed. When it quieted, Aaron called. "Hey," he said, soft, like someone opening a door halfway and waiting to see if you'll walk through. Aaron is the kind of man who doesn't ask what he isn't willing to hold. "How bad?" "I froze it," I said, "the tuition, the account." A beat. "Did anyone apologize?" I swallowed a laugh. "They laughed." He let out a sound that wasn't quite a word. "Then you did the right thing." There was comfort in how ordinary his kitchen sounded through the line. A pan cooling, the hiss of the faucet, the city breathing through a cracked window. "Lila texted," he added, "because we promise each other the small truths before they learn to be big ones. Said she heard your family was melting down and that I should be careful you don't control me with money the way you control them. Her words. I could feel my jaw set. Lila is the ghost of another life. Aaron's ex, the kind of person who frames concern like a favor to herself. You didn't respond, I said, and it wasn't a question. I blocked her last month, he said. Just wanted you to know what came through before that. Trust is never loud. It's the click of a lock you don't have to test twice. I told him about Tyler's sentence by the fire pit. How it wasn't the words, it was the way they settled. How everyone let them sit there like coals they could warm their hands on. I told him about the laugh, about how the photographer's flash felt like someone stamping a seal on a document I hadn't signed. You know this isn't your first boundary, he said. It's just the first one they can't spend. I didn't cry. Not then. There were too many numbers in my head. The amounts I'd covered without asking. The auto-pays I'd arranged while Dad's back healed and Dad's pride pretended. The slow accumulation of proof that if you pour yourself out long enough, someone will call the pitcher bottomless and the water owed. The next morning, my phone offered its second act. Mom again, 5 times. Marlene, 6. Not one message said, "We're sorry." Not one said, "That was cruel. We should have stopped it." Every note was about what I had and what they didn't. Money is a mirror people hold up to your face when they don't want to look at their own. I opened a spreadsheet. Utility accounts I'd set up during the winters they couldn't. Cell phone plans that were somehow always temporary. The family SUV I'd helped refinance 2 years ago when interest rates felt like gravity. I didn't cancel a single thing. I paused them. Let the payment dates arrive to an empty chair. Let the system send polite red letters instead of me. At 3:40 p.m., a voicemail from a woman named Ms. O'Brien at Tyler's school. Warm, measured, a tone built not to panic parents who are already panicked. Hi, Ms. Hart. Just confirming whether you'll be continuing tuition payments for Tyler this billing cycle, or whether we should make the spot available to a waitlisted student. Please call us back. I listened twice. She sounded like someone who's seen this story enough times to know the ending. I didn't call back. By evening, the group chat named Family reanimated, the way a horror movie lets a hand twitch after the music ends. We need to talk as a family, Mom wrote, like a newspaper headline trying to make facts behave. Your father isn't sleeping. His blood pressure is up. You're upsetting everyone. No mention of what was said. No ownership. Just a net cast for the old fish. I scrolled back to the photo the photographer had uploaded to a shared drive. There we all were. My smile doing what it could. Tyler turned just enough to the side to look older than he is. Mom caught mid-blink. Dad's smirk like a secret he believed in. The fire pit pretending to be home. I wondered, for a second, whether I'd tell the story differently if someone, anyone, had said, enough. And I knew I wouldn't. The silence after the sentence was the truth, and the laugh signed the paperwork. Aaron came by with takeout and sat on my rug, our knees touching, the cartons steaming between us like a treaty we could both smell and trust. We didn't talk about Lila again. We talked about the lake we haven't visited yet and the end of summer and how fall light takes the city apart and hands it back nicer. He asked if I wanted him to call Marlene, to absorb something ugly so it wouldn't stick to me. I told him no. Some things you clean by letting them dry into what they are. I slept with my phone in another room for the first time in a year. In the morning, there were more messages. Mom, still no apology. Dad, still imperative. Marlene, switching scripts, rage to guilt, to a final note about how I was ruining Tyler's future over a joke. The word joke appeared 3 times. Like repetition could make it a lesser god. I poured coffee and watched the steam lift. There's a point in every story where you stop asking if you're overreacting and start asking why you waited this long to react at all. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. Anger is a match. This was a pilot light. Steady, blue, alive. I opened my laptop and moved a date on a calendar no one else could see. Somewhere across town, a printer warmed for the first red letter. Somewhere across a campus, a name sat on a list with a star beside it. Somewhere in a family group chat, a silence began to grow teeth. And somewhere on my tongue, a new language was learning how to say no, like it wasn't a betrayal, but a boundary that arrived right on time. By Tuesday, the panic had learned my name. Marlene called 22 times before breakfast, as if repetition could turn a demand into a prayer. I let the phone ring until the sound detached from meaning and lived in the air like a cheap alarm. When I finally answered at 10:12, she skipped past hello, past history, past even pretending. "You're heartless," she said, voice tight enough to cut. "What kind of woman punishes a kid for telling the truth?" "I thank Grandma for the heads up," I said, and the click between us was the kind of quiet that doesn't ask to be forgiven. By noon, Mom tried diplomacy. "We need to talk. What you did to Tyler was unnecessary." At 1:03, Dad sent, "Call your mother." No one wrote, "We're sorry he said that." No one wrote, "We should have stopped it." Every message was a ledger line about what I had and what they wanted me to keep giving. I made coffee strong enough to carry me through a day of not explaining myself and opened the accounts I'd opened for them. Utilities in winter when pipes worried me more than pride. The family cell plan I put on my card just for a month during a stretch that lasted 2 years. The SUV I'd helped refinance when the rates were kinder and the monthly payment decided to be reasonable. I didn't cancel. I paused. Let due dates arrive like weather. Let systems deliver the kind of accountability family refused to. At 3:40 p.m., Ms. O'Brien's voice returned to my voicemail, warm and professional, asking if tuition would continue or if Tyler's spot should be released to a waitlist. She had that tone schools practice in mirrors, the one that says, "We are not your enemy," while reminding you every policy is a clock. I played it twice and didn't call back. By evening, the group chat named Family revived like an old sitcom with worse writers. "We need to talk as a family," Mom posted, followed by a second text about Dad's blood pressure and the stress I was causing. The message didn't mention the sentence that started the avalanche. That part was invisible again, like my years of paying were. I muted the thread and watched the blue badge on my screen multiply, like a fungus that enjoyed fluorescent light. Aaron came over with soup and a stubborn tenderness I've never learned to resist. He set the bag on the counter, kissed my cheek, and asked, "Scale of 1 to burn it all down?" "Somewhere between let it smolder and I already moved the kindling," I said. We ate cross-legged on the couch, the city pooling at the windows like patience. I told him about pausing the auto pays, about the measured way Ms. O'Brien said waitlisted, like it was a door that I'd opened and closed without any one person to blame. Aaron listened, the way he always does, without preparing his answer while I'm still speaking. "Lila emailed me," he said after a while, almost apologetically, as if he were handing me a glass with a crack in it. "Subject line was concern for you." I didn't read it, just saw the preview. Something about you being controlling with money like you control your family. It's tired. "Ghosts try every door," I said, and meant it. "Thank you for not opening that one." He half smiled. I locked it. Wednesday wore a different mask. Dad called at 9:02 a.m. and chose fury like it was the only tool he respected. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he snapped, the kind of voice men use when they want to sound like a consequence. "Do you pay those bills?" I asked, calm, the way you ask for a date of birth at a pharmacy. Silence. A small, human breath. I could hear the shape of the answer in the way the line held itself. "I have for the last 5 years," I said before he could invent. "Since you're back. Since things fell behind. Since everyone else decided generosity was my hobby." He didn't argue. He hung up. I stared at my reflection in the black mirror of my phone and thought about how people confuse boundary with betrayal when they've been living off your unspoken yes. By afternoon, Marlene moved her war to email. "Urgent. We need to talk about Tyler's tuition," the subject line insisted, because bold type is persuasive to people who mistake fonts for leverage. The body was a long walk through desperation. No backup funds, no mid-year scholarships, no options except my wallet. She wrote that she didn't want to make it a whole family thing, which made me laugh out loud, because that was exactly the stage she wanted and exactly the play I refused to attend. I logged into a few more portals, the ones they forgot I could see because I was the one who set them up. I didn't touch balances. I didn't move money. I let the systems make their polite, escalating noises, the kind that start with a reminder and turn into letters you can't pretend you never opened. That night, Aunt Linda called. She is, by nature, a truth serum with jewelry. "I heard," she said, skipping ceremony. "You've been paying for their lives while they've been auditioning you for outsider. They should be on their knees." Sometimes validation arrives in a voice that's lived enough to recognize the shape of exploitation. I closed my eyes and let her sentence hang in my kitchen like a blessing with teeth. Thursday was chaos with an agenda. My cousin Leo, fresh from tech money and allergic to freeloaders, rang and said, "I've been waiting years for you to stop acting like an ATM with feelings. Good for you." We were never close, but clarity creates kin. Marlene tried a softer draft. Another email, this time shorter, feigning humility, like she'd borrowed it for the day. "Maybe we can rebuild trust and figure out a way forward," she wrote, as if we were colleagues who misscheduled a meeting. Not one word about the fire pit, not one word about the laugh, not one syllable of apology. She wanted the ending without the story that earns it. By dinner, Mom started running a playbook I recognized from holidays and hospital waiting rooms. "We need to talk as a family. Your father isn't sleeping." This is upsetting everyone. The theme was collective distress. The missing character was responsibility. I stared at the text and pictured the photo by the fire pit again, the way my smile tried to explain me to people who preferred the caption without me in it. At 8:12 p.m., my phone flashed a new unknown number, voicemail again. I waited for the transcription to settle onto the screen like snow. It was Ms. O'Brien. Billing cycle, the wait list, the request for confirmation. The careful music of institutional empathy. I forwarded it to Marlene without comment. A minute later, she replied, "Wow, cold," as if warmth were something I owed. Friday, the social performance began. Marlene posted a carousel of childhood photos on Facebook. Gap-toothed grins, crooked bangs, a birthday cake with our names piped in shaky frosting. Her caption, "Family is forever." Misunderstandings can tear people apart if we let them. We had not misunderstood. We had finally understood too well. Distant cousins chimed in with heart emojis and advice about forgiveness, as if they'd been at the fire pit catching the laugh in their hands like confetti. Around noon, an email landed in my inbox with the subject line, "Olive Branch." It read like a committee had written it. Too neat. Phrases that felt worn from overuse. Backbone of the family. Rebuild with love and gratitude. We didn't mean to make you feel pushed aside. There was a photo attachment. A dinner table set for 6. Napkins folded like birds with broken necks. "Sunday?" it asked. I didn't open the calendar invite. Dad left a voicemail later, the edge sanded off his anger until it sounded like something he thought might pass for fatherly. "I know we screwed up," he said. "You're angry, but you're not perfect either. Maybe try being part of this family again instead of holding it hostage." I listened twice, not because I doubted the words, but to study the way a man can walk around an apology and still claim he's arrived. I made tea. I sorted laundry. I answered 3 work emails with the efficiency of a person who saves her softness for people who have earned it. When the sun slid behind the brick line of the buildings across from mine, I turned on the lamp with the warm bulb and sat cross-legged on the floor. My phone lay face down beside me like a small, quiet animal. I thought about the weekend last winter when I canceled a trip because Marlene's car needed $2,000 right now. I thought about the months the electricity bill landed in my inbox because I'd rerouted it when Dad's surgery bled the budget dry, about the groceries delivered to their door with the message field left blank because I didn't know how to type. I'm tired of carrying this alone without it sounding like a complaint instead of a fact. When the group chat lit up again Saturday morning, Mom tried a headline, "We need to talk as a family." 2 hours later, "Your father isn't sleeping. His blood pressure is up." Still nothing about the sentence that entered our lives like a thief and left with my place in the photo. Still nothing about the laugh. I muted the thread and let the day be quiet on purpose. Late afternoon, Uncle Ray knocked on my apartment door, the 6-pack in his hand, the exact brand of grace that doesn't ask for permission. "Come take a walk," he said. And we did, past the old park that keeps secrets for the neighborhood. He sat with his elbows on his knees and didn't bother with small talk. "They took you for granted," he said, eyes on the trees. "Used you and laughed behind your back. And now that you're done, they're going to tell the story backwards." "I know," I said. He looked at me then, the kind of look that prepares you for a sentence you'll remember. "Your grandfather called me. He's rewriting the will." The world narrowed to the space between his words. House, cash, lake property. Not a gift, an audit, not payback, correction. I felt something uncoil in my chest that I'd been carrying so long I thought it was part of my spine. "Let them feel the dark," Ray said, standing. "They've been stealing your light for years." That night, I turned my phone face up and watched the group chat flicker to life with a new kind of electricity. They didn't know the details yet. They just felt the weather changing. It would be Sunday soon, and there would be a table set for 6 and a chair they wanted me to fill out of habit more than love. I powered the phone down and slept before the storm. Sunday morning rose like a question, the kind that waits on your porch before knocking. I brewed coffee, stood by the window, and watched rain draw faint lines across the glass. The group chat was already humming. Mom again. "Dinner tonight is still on. Family only." Marlene added, "We can fix this if you just come." I didn't reply. At noon, a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. The calm voice of a woman introduced herself as Mrs. Clark, head of disciplinary affairs at Tyler's school. Her tone carried the quiet authority of someone who has seen every version of panic. "Good afternoon, Ms. Hart," she said. "I wanted to inform you that Tyler has been caught cheating during a midterm exam. Several students provided proof, and we're opening an investigation. Expulsion is possible. Please call me back if you need clarification." I didn't need clarification. I just sat there, the coffee cooling, her words replaying. The same family that accused me of destroying Tyler's future was already doing that job just fine without my help. I forwarded the voicemail to Marlene. No text, no commentary, just the file. 5 minutes later, my phone exploded. First, Marlene, "You set this up. You're trying to ruin him." Then, "You must have connections at the school." And finally, "You're sick, Elena. You need help." Then Mom, frantic, "You need to fix this. You have friends in the city. Pull some strings." I stared at the messages, then typed exactly 3 words before deleting them. He did this. I deleted the draft. Silence is louder when you've already said everything once. By evening, Marlene's rage softened into guilt, or what she thought guilt sounded like. She called, her voice cracked and thin. "I had no idea," she said. "Tyler would never cheat. It's retaliation because of you, isn't it? They're punishing him because you froze the payments." Blame is a family heirloom. It always finds a new shelf. I let her speak until she ran out of breath, then said quietly, "Maybe you should ask him yourself," and hung up. At midnight, Dad called. "Your mother's crying," he said. "This has gone far enough." "You still think I'm not really part of this family?" I asked. He went quiet, then sighed. "This isn't about that." "It's always been about that," I said, and ended the call. The next day, Monday, Uncle Ray texted, "Need to talk. Urgent, but good." We met at the park again, under the same tree, the same 6-pack. He was calmer this time, but his eyes carried something heavy and certain. "Your grandfather called me last night," he said. "He's rewriting the will. Already told your father." I blinked. "He actually did it? House, cash, lake property, all of it. He said he's tired of watching them leech off you. Said the only person in this family with a spine is you." The words didn't feel like victory. They felt like vindication wrapped in grief. The kind of justice that arrives too late to feel clean. Ray took out his phone and showed me a text from Grandpa. The message was simple, typed in the blocky font of an old man's phone. "Tell Elena she's getting everything." They laughed at her. Now they can learn to live without her. I stared at the words until they blurred. Not because of greed, because someone had finally seen the truth. Ray leaned back. He said they called him ungrateful, said you manipulated him. Of course they did. He told them, "Get on your knees and beg her. See how that goes." For the first time in weeks, I laughed. It came out shaky, disbelieving. "That sounds like him." "That's not all," Ray lowered his voice. "He said they're planning to confront you together. Tonight, at that dinner." I smiled without warmth. Let them. When I got home, Aaron was waiting on the steps outside my apartment, rain on his jacket, hands deep in his pockets. "I heard from Lila again," he said, voice careful. "Of course you did," I murmured. "She ran into me at the cafe near my office, sat down without asking, said she was just worried you're isolating yourself, that your family's in chaos because you're trying to prove something." I studied his face. "And what did you say?" I told her she's confusing independence with isolation. Then I told her to leave. The relief that came wasn't loud, it just unclenched something in my chest. "Thank you." He smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me for protecting what's already ours." We stood there for a long time, listening to the rain. When I finally checked my phone, there it was, a new message from Mom. "Grandpa is making a mistake. You need to talk sense into him. This family is falling apart because of you." And then, from Grandpa himself, short and surgical, They finally know what losing feels like. Don't waste it. That night, the group chat became theater. Everyone performing concern, guilt, outrage, lines rehearsed for years. I didn't reply, but I could feel it. The power shifting, the silence growing teeth, the truth crawling out from under the polite laughter that had buried it. For once, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the mirror they were finally forced to face. By Tuesday morning, the storm had changed direction. The group chat was no longer filled with rage, but repentance, or at least its imitation. Marlene wrote first. Can we please talk? Tyler's devastated. We all are. Let's start over. Mom followed. We didn't mean to make you feel pushed aside. You've always been important to us. Then Dad. Your grandfather has made things difficult. Let's fix this before it gets worse. There it was. Not an apology, just fear dressed as affection. I didn't respond. At noon, my phone rang. Grandpa. The one person who never called for small talk. His voice was strong, steady, still carrying that old world certainty that sentences were supposed to mean something. I told them, he said, not wasting time. Told them you're getting everything. The house, the lake, the accounts, all of it. I could almost hear his smile. They called me ungrateful, he continued, said you manipulated me. So I told them, if you think she's manipulative, get on your knees and beg her. See how that goes. I laughed through the disbelief. Did you really say that? I did, he said, and they went quiet. That's how I knew I finally got through. When the call ended, I just sat there, the sound of the city slipping in through the window. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be understood. I was understood, and that was enough. Later that afternoon, Aaron came home early. He set down his keys and studied me carefully, like he could see the tension hanging between my shoulders. They reached out to me, he said. I turned. Who did? Lila, he said quietly. She found my work number, said she just wanted to warn me. My chest tightened. About what? That you were manipulating everyone, that you were using money to get attention, that this, he gestured between us, was just another power play. The words landed like a cold stone dropped into still water. I forced a small laugh. She's creative. I'll give her that. Aaron stepped closer, closing the space between us. I told her she doesn't get to rewrite who you are, and that I know what love looks like when it costs something. I swallowed hard. And she believed you? She didn't have to, he said. I wasn't talking for her. That night, I scrolled through the family group chat, the messages blurring together. Pleas, guilt, little pieces of self-preservation dressed as reconciliation. I didn't answer. I just watched. By Friday, the play was in full production. Marlene posted another collage on Facebook. Childhood birthdays, graduation photos, captions about forgiveness and family unity. Comment sections filled with people saying things like, life's too short for grudges. I read each one like a person studying a language she no longer spoke. Then came the email from Mom. Subject line, olive branch. It was long, formal, and obviously not written by her. Too clean, too strategic. Words like healing, gratitude, and moving forward. At the bottom, a picture of a dinner table set for 6. Silverware polished, chairs symmetrical. Sunday, 6 p.m. Hope you'll come. I didn't reply. Saturday afternoon, Dad called. His voice was quieter this time, tired around the edges. I know we messed up, he said, but you're not perfect either. Maybe try being part of this family again instead of holding it hostage. Hostage. That word caught in my chest, the kind of word that reveals what people think when they run out of excuses. I hung up without a word. That night, the rain came back. Aaron sat beside me on the couch, both of us silent as the sound filled the apartment. You don't owe them peace, he said softly, especially if they're only offering it as a transaction. I know, I said, but it still hurts. He nodded. That means you're still human. Don't let them take that too. Sunday arrived with perfect irony. At 6 p.m., the dinner began without me. My phone started buzzing with calls. We made your favorite. Everyone's here. I ignored them, ordered Thai food, and turned on a movie I wouldn't remember. At 7:15, a text from Uncle Ray. He's laughing his ass off. I smiled. Grandpa. Yeah, Ray replied. Said he wanted to see if they'd actually grovel. They did. Your mom almost cried over the green beans. I couldn't help it. I laughed. The kind of laugh that shakes something loose inside you. Ray sent one more message. He told them, you treated her like an outsider. Now she owns the inside. I exhaled, slow and steady. For once, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like freedom learning how to breathe. It's been 3 months since the dinner that never needed me. 3 months since the last apology that wasn't one. The quiet feels different now, not empty, but earned. No more group chats. No more phone calls, pretending to be concerned. No one asking about overdue bills or tuition payments. No one checking in just to see what they could take next. It's almost peaceful. Until last week. A letter waited in my mailbox, handwritten, envelope thick and soft from too much emotion. The looping cursive was familiar. Marlene. For a moment, I thought maybe this was it. The apology I'd stopped hoping for but still secretly wanted. It wasn't. 5 pages, front and back. Every paragraph a performance. It began with, "Life has been stressful since everything happened." Then, things got out of hand. And then, nostalgia. Remember when we used to play tag in the yard? As if childhood memories could erase years of being treated like a stranger with a checkbook. By page 3, I could feel the pivot coming. It arrived right on cue. Tyler got into a state college. Barely. No scholarships, no aid. We don't know how we'll afford it. If you could help us out just this once, it would mean everything. Just this once. I set the letter down and stared at those words. 4 years of tuition, car payments, medical bills, groceries, vacations deferred, birthdays skipped. Everyone's had built a life they pretended was theirs. I didn't feel anger, not anymore. Just a kind of astonishment at how deep entitlement can root itself and still bloom. The next morning, I drove to Grandpa's house. The air smelled like salt and earth, the lake stretching wide behind the porch. He was in the garden, pulling weeds with one hand and drinking lemonade with the other. He looked up when he saw me. She wrote, didn't she? I held out the letter. He read every page in silence, his expression unmoved until the end. Then he smiled the small, satisfied smile of a man who'd seen enough storms to stop fearing thunder. "Well," he said, folding the paper neatly, "we've been waiting for round 2. He went inside and came back with a folder, the estate documents, thick with signatures and clauses. "You want to add a condition?" he asked. I did. Together we drafted a single paragraph at his dining room table, the ink still wet when I signed. "No member of the immediate family shall receive inheritance or financial benefit of any kind unless approved in writing by Elena Hart, with notarized documentation to be reviewed annually." When it was done, Grandpa leaned back in his chair, the wood creaking like it was agreeing with him. "Let's see if they figure out what silence really means this time." I laughed softly. "You think they will?" He shrugged. "Some lessons you can't teach, you just stop paying for them." We sat there for a while, the afternoon light sliding across the table, catching on the glass of lemonade between us. Outside, the lake rippled in the wind, small and calm, as if it didn't remember the storms it had held. That night, back home, I placed Marlene's letter in the top drawer of my desk, not out of sentiment, but as evidence, proof that some people never change, even when given the chance. Aaron came in, wrapped his arms around me, and whispered, "You did what you had to." "I know," I said quietly, "but I still wish they'd meant it when they said family." He kissed the top of my head. "Maybe they did, but you just learned the definition changes when money's involved." I smiled, small but real. Then maybe I finally learned the new definition too. Outside, the city lights shimmered, reflections dancing across the glass. Somewhere out there, they were probably rewriting their version of the story. One where I was the villain who changed, the woman who forgot where she came from. But I knew better. I hadn't forgotten. I'd just stopped apologizing for surviving. In the morning, I logged into the credit union, set up a new scholarship fund under an alias. The description read, "For students who work hard without anyone to pay their way." I smiled as I clicked submit. Not revenge, just balance. Then I closed my laptop and looked out over the lake from the balcony, where the water caught the first light of dawn. Somewhere behind me, the past was still arguing, but it no longer had my number. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't waiting for the phone to ring. I was already free.